On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, it's media day, and so while you wait for the player interviews, Nick Crain and I are going to be previewing the season for the Thunder. How good can this team be? What should your expectations be? And also, some bold predictions, of course, with Nick Crain.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunderpod. Joining us today is Nick Crain. You can follow him on Twitter at Crain NBA, also Uncontested Podcast, Forbes, Inside the Thunder, all the stuff that Nick Crain does. Nick, how are you doing today as we sit here about to open up media day and training camp and everything else?
Doing great and feel blessed to be speaking with the sweetest mid-range jumper on the Thunder beat. That's you.
Hey, he said it. He said it, not me. I appreciate it. Nick, we've been rolling through some season previews, and so we want to start with how good can this team be seeding wise if everything were to go according to plan, which often doesn't happen, but if everything were to go according to plan, how good can this team be?
Man, in a perfect scenario, like you have to say third or fourth. Like you mentioned, it would take everything under the sun to go perfect, but it is possible, right? If there's no major injuries and Mitchich ends up being this meister off the bench, and Jalen Williams takes another step. Josh Giddey takes another step. Chet Holmgren ends up being a Rookie of the Year candidate. Like this could happen, right? The floor, I think, is just as interesting because it's in the West, man. It's wide. You look at win totals. There's like 5 or 6 teams there stacked in the middle of the West. So, all it takes, we saw it last season. 1 or 2 wins can elevate you a handful of spots in the standings. I'm curious, are you higher than me on the standings? Is 3 feel like the ceiling for you?
Yeah, I think that 3 is the ceiling if everything went perfectly, because you're going to have this Thunder team. The thing I've been kind of preaching on is that this Thunder team will care about the regular season, and a lot of other teams might not care about the regular season, to where that in and of itself can be a bit of a difference maker for the Thunder in terms of getting elevated into an upper echelon standing, kind of like the Kings last year, where they were a really good regular season team. They cared every single night, and they were able to win a lot of games and it compiled them up to the 3 seed. But I think that ultimately it'd be really good for the Thunder just to be a top 6 seed, no matter how it happens. Because like you said, if you're a top 6 seed, you're only 1 or so games away from being a home court advantage team in the Western Conference. So that's still a heck of an accomplishment.
Question for you. You mentioned this could be a really good regular season team and they're going to care. In the same regard, do you feel this team finally sticks to a regular rotation, or are we exploring all year again? What's the situation there in your opinion?
Yeah, I would be shocked if they didn't explore all year, but I think that you now have a lot better exploration pieces, or like better tools in your Door the Explorer backpack to use and help you navigate through the NBA regular season. So I think that you're going to be putting better players on the floor, which is going to help. I think that is going to cause you to explore, because if you just list out the name of guys that you would like to see play, you get to an unruly number pretty quickly, to where if they don't explore, then some guys that are really good just simply wouldn't play at all. And so just by nature of that, I think that you're going to see a 10 to 12 rotation from Mark pretty often with this team. But I think that is actually a positive for the regular season, because with how much talent is on this Thunder's team and depth is on this Thunder's team, are you telling me, Nick, that any given night they cannot find 7 or 8 names who are playing well that night? Like, I think that especially with Mark's ability to make adjustments at halftime and a willingness to pull the reins in, even on guys like Dort and Giddey last year, where he would like sit them in the second half, like his willingness to change, I think, is going to help the Thunder win games, because someone's got to be hot. Like, there's got to be some list of names any night that's 5, 6, 7 deep. They're playing really well.
Yeah, and fresh legs are a real thing, especially late in the season. I think last year the kind of turning point in my eye was the turn of the calendar year, where some of these teams started to hit a wall, frankly, and the Thunder started kind of escalating their play. I think a lot of that's really fresh legs. It's like in football when you got the stacked D line and you got fresh legs coming in and out. Your top guys may not be getting as many reps, but your effectiveness goes through the roof because the other team that's maybe less deep or less willing to play more players, like in the fourth quarter, you know better than anyone with that sweet mid-range jumper. When your legs get tired, shots don't fall.
That is true. When the legs get tired, it's tough sledding. But we've talked about seeding and kind of where it can go if everything goes right and kind of where it levels off at. But our good friends over at FanDuel, they have the over-under set at 44.5. And I think that's a really great line. And if we were betting, I think that we would both agree, probably stay away from that line because you're not going to gain much from it. But if I force you to pick on that line, over-under, 44.5 wins for the Thunder.
I'm going to go under for a few reasons. And this is not to say the Thunder are going to be bad. It's not to say the Thunder can't be better. I have them going 41-41 on the record in my prediction. Few reasons. One, last year they didn't have many significant injuries. Poku was out, Ousmane Dieng was out for a little bit, JRE was out for a little bit, but the core guys didn't miss like long stretches. That's not something you can bank on every single season. Like, not that anybody wants Shea or Josh or J-Dub or Chet to get hurt, but the reality is in an 82-game season, teams deal with that kind of stuff. The Thunder were fortunate last year. Second reason, I think the West will be more competitive. I don't know if FanDuel has the similar odds that I've seen, but I think there's only 2 teams projected below 30 wins in the West. So the top, I think, is kind of 2 teams heavy. The bottom is 2 teams heavy. And then there's everybody else. And so the Thunder got better this offseason, to be clear. But so did a lot of other Western Conference teams. You've got Dallas. They've got more chemistry with Luka and Kyrie. The Clippers, if they can stay healthy, should be better. They're looking to make moves. So just because the Thunder get better doesn't mean their record improves or they go up in the seeding. So for all those reasons, and I also think it'll take a little bit of time to integrate Chet and Mitchich and some other guys, and I'm sure we'll talk about that on the show, but 41 wins would be an improvement. 41 wins would likely get you in the postseason. And while I think many Thunder fans and national media would say 41-41 is underwhelming, like, progression's not linear, although that is a step up. And I think that would be a solid season for OKC. Maybe not ideal, but it would still be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think that with this Thunder team, the success is still not going to be measured by win and loss record. And I think that can kind of exhaust fans at times because they've been hearing that for a few years now. But this year it's different. It's not about tanking or draft position or anything else. It's just that there's a lot of new pieces and a lot of moving parts to where I think that this team, when you watch them every night, if you go to the games, if you watch them on television, you're going to enjoy this team. You're going to think that this team is a lot better and would beat last year's team in a 7-game series. The thing is, they're probably not going to make a 16-win improvement, though, like last year's team did. They're probably going to improve by a game or 5 or somewhere in between. And so that's why I think that this is a really good line, because it's a 4-win improvement. You got to go over or under. But the jump in win total is hard to do in the NBA. It's not as easy as it might have appeared last year. And I think that this team can, like we said, get up to the 3 seed, which would have to be a massive win leap, at least 5-6 games. But they also, of course, can be right where they were last year. But no matter which way that they side, they're going to be a much better team as you add Chet Holmgren, as you add Mitchich, as you add Cason Wallace, even, who I think that Mark is going to fall in love with and likely play a lot this year. So you get all that kind of in there, and at the end of the year you might look back on the record and say, well, that wasn't quite the leap that you'd expect, but it was the leap in terms of like on the court production. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point. Like, a step forward doesn't have to be a ton more wins, and that's quite literally pressing the Thunder's philosophy. So, Nick, I think that we can both agree that the starting lineup is going to be Shea, Josh, Dort, J-Dub, Chet, whenever they're kind of healthy and everything. Yes. Is that going to be their best 5-man lineup, though? Is there going to be a lineup that's better than that? It's always interesting because if you look at like 5-man lineups, it's never the guys you expect to play together that actually put up the best numbers. But like if we're looking holistically,
who I think the best lineup would be. The only change to that I might make is removing Dort and adding Kenrich Williams. Something about that lineup, like obviously you're going to miss Lou Dort's on-ball defense, but I just think that that size that you can bring with that lineup, that edge, that grittiness with those five, I mean, that just feels like a really, really good closing lineup. You could also say Poku in there if Poku is healthy and can do what he did early last season. We have a lot of recency bias where the fan base might be soured on Poku or man can't stop getting hurt. But don't forget, when he was healthy before that injury, that dude was doing awesome things. And if you throw in a 7-footer there in Lou Dort's spot and have him on the wing, telling you. What about you?
November Poku was a really fun thing to experience. Yeah, I think that. So like I was going to say that this is like a lineup that not necessarily is at the top of the charts of like a stat website, but just like you're watching the Thunder and you're like, hey, I love when they play this lineup. It's really good. I think that it's likely going to be replacing Dort with like Isaiah Joe, because I think that's going to be the most fun for fans to watch of just Shea and Giddey and J-Dub and Chet with Isaiah Joe in the court to knock down some threes. But ultimately, in terms of best lineup, if we're talking about to win games and like execute, I think that will be the five best guys to put on the court to win games in most cases. I think that the more interesting conversation with the lineup is not starting, of course, it is closing games. And I think that they're going to close games sort of by committee, where if you need an offensive push late, you're going to play Joe and you're going to play maybe Micic. If you need defense late, of course, you're going to play Lou Dort. And so that's kind of where I think that the lineups will kind of evolve and change is late in games, depending on matchups, depending on the game scenario.
Great problem to have. Like, who's going to close games? Well, there's like 9 guys that you trust doing it. That's a fantastic problem to have.
It is. It's also a great solution to have if you have DoorDash, because you've trusted DoorDash to bring you your restaurant favorites. You know, maybe you didn't feel like cooking that night. Maybe you just had a late night and need something to power you through the rest of the day, if you will. But now you can trust DoorDash to pick you up and close out your cooking. So if you're sitting there in the kitchen right now and you're making some pancakes, and then you look over and go, oh no, Nick, I ran out of syrup, and you can't have pancakes without syrup. So you're going to dial up DoorDash, and you can get grocery deliveries now with DoorDash that can bring you what you're missing. Maybe you went to make a coffee. Nick, we're big coffee guys, about 5 coffees a day at Paycom Center between us. So if you ran out of creamer, if Paycom Center ran out of that Italian creamer, you dial up DoorDash, you get it to them on the DoorDash grocery delivery. They're great, and they can also help your local economy, because they can also now go to thousands of grocery stores that are close to you in your neighborhood to help you boost that economy. You can get some little things that you might run out of. You can also get a whole grocery haul at DoorDash. It's very versatile. So go right now and get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 in value. Make sure you go and use code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Limited time only. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. But that's 50% off whenever you go to DoorDash and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's code LOCKEDONNBA at DoorDash. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Nick Crain of Forbes, of Inside the Thunder, of Uncontested Podcast, of Nick Crain on Twitter, at Nick Crain NBA, no, Crain NBA on Twitter. But Nick, to win the most amount of games, if the Thunder were to get to that 3 seed, who has to take a bigger jump, Josh Giddey or Jalen Williams?
Man, I'm going to go Josh Giddey. I think I'm of the belief that at the end of this season, Jalen Williams is the second best player on this team. But I think what Josh does and what he provides from a rebounding standpoint, a passing standpoint, like if this guy averaged 29 and 8, which is not far off from what he averaged last season, I just don't see how this team isn't really, really good. Assuming everybody else is healthy and Shea continues to be the level of guy that he was. I just think that, especially defensively too, like I think Jalen Williams has already shown a bunch of defensive upside. If Josh Giddey all of a sudden can guard 2 through 4 effectively and use that big frame and move his feet a bit better, and the lateral quickness is improved. I just don't see a world where that's not a really good team.
Yeah, I think that with this Thunder team, you're going to see Josh Giddey. He can take a progression. You saw what he did in FIBA at the World Cup, so that's going to help a lot for the Thunder and for Josh, of course. And so I think that that'd be great for the Thunder to see Josh Giddey take that elevation. And I think that J-Dub will take a step just by association of everyone taking a step up, because you see how last year his game really complemented the Thunder and their players. Now, Nick, I want to give you the runway and just give me anything about Chet. What you think that, if you want to give a stat line prediction, if you want to give his game high in any category, if you want to just paint the picture of his impact, just talk about Chet Holmgren.
Chet is going to do so many things. Like there is 8 different statistics that we could throw out there and be like, yeah, that seems about right. I'm going to go with the splits. He's on record saying he wants to be a 50, 40, 90 guy. That's really hard, first of all, especially as a rookie. I'm going to say Chet goes 50, 38, 88. So just miss it, but that is still wildly impressive for Chet Holmgren. I also will give you, 2.2 blocks per game.
Wow.
Do you take that? If you look back at many of the best shot blocking players in NBA history, other than some of the guys of way back in the past when some of these numbers were ridiculous, Chet has a real runway to be like one of the best shot blocking rookies in the last few decades. Like, not that 2.2 or 2.5 blocks is easy to do, but like that's kind of the bar to trend towards having one of the best shot blocking rookie seasons ever.
Yeah, him blocking shots is going to be a lot of fun. And as Sam Presti said Wednesday, he's going to get dunked on at times too, but it just comes with the territory of being a shot blocker and trying to protect the rim. And I think that that's going to be what the Thunder have missed these last couple of years. And now they get it with Chet Holmgren. I think that you're spot on with Chet Holmgren. He's going to be very efficient. I think that people were a little scared after Summer League about his shooting. I would not be scared about his shooting at all. You and I have watched many a warm-ups where he is just canning threes, and that was his first kind of game environment since the injury and everything else. So I would not look into Summer League all too much about his shooting specifically. He's going to be a really good shooter. He's proven to be a good shooter at every level he's ever played at, and so that's going to be no different in the NBA. So, but if he did do 50, 38, 88, that would be a great rookie season for Chet Holmgren. Now, Nick, we got Sam Presti's answer to the Thunder going all in or trading for a star, but just what is your thought process on that entire exhausting conversation?
I agree with Sam on most of the things he said. Like, he brings up the analogy 2 years in a row now where you don't buy paint for the house that you haven't bought because you don't know what it looks like or what kind of paint you need or how much paint you need. We've heard that a couple times now, which I completely agree with. I think if you're going to make the star move, you have to be at a point where you can confidently say, this star gets us over the hump. I don't think you're at a point now where like, is Chet a 4 or a 5? Is J-Dub really going to be this like super strong, undersized 4, or is he going to end up being more of like a 3? Do you have Lou Dort long term? Do you want to play Josh in the backcourt, or maybe Josh ends up being like your Ben Simmons type 4? Like, we just don't know enough about this team yet. Like, we finally have a situation where you and I can watch games and start to see the pieces come together. Like, my opinion is there's a very clear core 4 of guys right now. You got to figure out how those 4 fit and where the gap is. And that's when you get your star. Maybe it's a guard. Maybe it's a forward. Maybe it's a wing. Maybe it's a center. Maybe Chet is much better in space on the perimeter. Can be like a weak side shot blocker versus a guy that just kind of protects the rim in the paint. That completely changes the type of star you go after. So I agree with the sentiment from Sam. You also have to give up a ton of assets. Usually stars are on the books for big money. And you and I both know J-Dub, Chet, and Josh are on the trajectory to like be in the conversation of max contract. which that's going to be a problem in itself. If you bring in a $50 million guy on top of what you already have, could be more problems than you want.
Yeah, and I think that it's just important to know that, like, the 16 win improvement last year, it feels like this thing is just traveling through time at a warp speed, but they've played 0 minutes together, literally 0 together of this core. Your only top 5 pick of this rebuild has not played a single second of NBA basketball. So, like, let's just kind of pump the brakes a little bit on where the Thunder are at. But I think that you're spot on. I think that Sam's spot on. But Nick, what people might not know is that you are a traveling man. You're all around the world. You lead the league, the entire NBA, of frequent flyer miles. So, like, when you think about it, it's probably true because most of these guys are on team planes and you're on your personal account. So with all those frequent flyer miles, with all that traveling, it's unbelievable what you do. You've seen some things. You've seen some arenas. What are some things that the new Thunder arena, if it does pass, should include?
Oh, man. That's a really, really, really good question. I wish we could do like a whole podcast about this and like put up a visionary board and just like map out what this new arena will look like.
Nick, don't get yourself into something. We're a 5-day-week podcast. We have plenty of podcasts to fail.
Okay, let's do it. I think just given the environment of Oklahoma City and being a college state, like the Dallas Cowboys arena, for example, I'm going to give you a football example now, although I think the new Clippers arena is going to have this and a couple other arenas have it. But like a standing room area, it sells more tickets. It gets more people in there. It's more of like a happy hour cocktail social thing. You can like see the game and hear the game and look at the video board, but you're not necessarily sitting in a seat. I think for like corporations and individuals and young Thunder fans, that would be awesome. And it's at a low price point. So that would be sick. I also think like a fan section. I'm going to give you a baseball example now. I think the Astros have this. The Rangers have it. I'm sure the Royals have it or maybe did when they were really, really good at baseball. But like a fan section where or a student section or like a young fan section of some sort where it's a little more rowdy. It may not be a family environment, but it's like your college student section. Like that's the section that, I think the Clippers arena, they're setting it up to where when you're shooting a free throw, it's like in your line of sight behind the backboard, kind of up in the second or third area, and they're going to be going crazy. I think that would be awesome. I mean, you're a gambling man, maybe. It'd be kind of cool. And if Oklahoma like really opens up the legalization of gambling to be able to bet, like you have a little screen on the back of your chair and you can, enter some bets, some live bets, some futures bets, whatever you want to do. Get me a Pluckers in there. The first Pluckers in Oklahoma. It's a big thing in Texas. It's the best wing out there. What restaurants, by the way, as an aside, what restaurants would you like to see in this new arena?
Well, that's a good question that I wasn't ready for, Nick. As a podcast host, you just threw it all off the rails here. But I'm going to go with Clark's Crew BBQ. That's a great joint. It's a great joint in Oklahoma City.
I haven't had that. I need to get that. Next time I'm in town, we'll have to go maybe after media day or something. We'll go there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we went there with Joe and Daniel and Clemente to celebrate the postseason. We've got to go celebrate media now.
I love it. What else would you want to see in an arena?
So like I really liked the whenever we were in Utah for Salt Lake City for the All-Star game. I liked how they had the concourse where you could like look at the mountains and everything. And so I think that, like, given that games kind of are going to happen around sunset, you're going to be in the arena around sunset and the Oklahoma skies and everything. Maybe seeing the sky from the arena would be pretty cool. I know that, like, logistically, it might be built in a place where it's hard to get a great view of anything worth seeing. And so you don't want to make it look like tacky or anything. But I think that that'd be pretty cool if they could incorporate it into this whole idea. I think having a kind of more expansive kind of club area would just make it feel more big league and more legit, and maybe attract some Oklahoma celebrities to want to go to more games and be seen at more games and everything else. But ultimately, I think that just any improvement is a huge improvement. The thing about building this arena, if it does go through, they can't mess it up because you cannot go from the bottom of the barrel to worse. This is one of the worst arenas in the NBA in terms of smallest square footage and smallest venue and everything else. But I think that it's going to be great to kind of see how they add it. My biggest thing has been on the outside of the arena. You got to bring back Thunder Alley. If you're going to do all this, if you're going to be with all this new arena, everything, you've got to bring back Thunder Alley for a team that should be really good by the time that you open up this arena. So I think that'd be great. You see it in Milwaukee, you see it in Toronto and everywhere else. So yeah, I would say maybe you try to incorporate the Oklahoma Sky in some way. I would love to see the core in the arena kind of be some Oklahoma artists maybe like painting some things or they're doing some cool things in the arena. We see them on Twitter even of just like these amazing artists on Twitter that make some great Thunder related masterpieces. Maybe put them in the arena, highlight them, something like that. And then another thing that I liked at Salt Lake City was the concourse area was like a literal concourse where like you and I just sat down and like had a full-blown dinner waiting for All-Star Saturday Night to start, like just in a comfortable kind of food court like layout. So like I think that giving someone space to go do that instead of having to kind of shrivel up in your seat and kind of not be able to talk to everybody and everything after you go get your stuff from the concourse. I think giving them like a actual place to hang out in the concourse would be cool too.
I know this is your podcast and you just called me out for spinning it back on you, but will the new arena have number 0 hanging in the rafters?
Ooh, it's going to open 2029-30. Here's the thing though. I'm gonna throw it back on you.
Okay.
When's the right time to retire his number? The second he retires, because it's obviously you're going to do it, or do you play the marketing game? Where like, let's say that Russ retires, just for the sake of argument. Let's say he retires the final game of the season prior to the arena opening. So the final game of 2028, he retires. Do you, in that first season at the arena where people are already going to come, already going to see the attraction, already going to be involved in the new environment in Oklahoma City, do you retire his jersey then, or do you wait till that next year to give you another attraction to go see, another reason to get back out to the game?
That's really hard because it's going to feel, it already feels like a new era of Thunder basketball. When that arena opens, it's going to be like the true new era of Thunder basketball. It would feel weird if his jersey went up in the rafters in the new arena. Like if the ceremony was there, would it be awesome and cool and people come? Absolutely. But it feels like to me, it has to go up in the current structure and then be relocated to the new arena. It just feels that way to me.
Yeah, I think that in an ideal world, that's how it would be done, probably because you kind of want to see the memories happen in that venue, and then him and Nick would be retired already in that venue. But we'll see whenever Russ retires. We can't put a limit on Russell Westbrook and how he's going to play and how long he's going to play. But in all likelihood, I think that he'll retire before the end of the 2028 season.
Yeah.
So you can see his jersey retired for sure in the original Paycom Center, original Ford Center, original Chesapeake Energy Arena, whatever you want to tab it as, and then it gets shuffled on over. You move it on over to the new arena, which could be across the street, which would be an easy move for these jerseys to not mess them up.
The Rylan Stiles Center.
Hey, I'm open to it. The Locked On Thunder Dome would be a smashing success if the Thunder would like to do that. But Nick, I'm going to throw it back on you once again. With this whole new arena talk, with the jersey retirement talk, do you like the way the Thunder have retired jerseys in the sense of Nick Collison's it's like a banner. It's not really like a jersey.
Oh, so you're saying that the physical thing that is raised into the air.
Yeah, the physical thing of like, it's kind of like a banner.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that. I don't know. Like I think that looks classic.
Okay.
Like the banner. Is there a bunch of other arenas that do like jerseys and unique different things? I'm not an attention to detail guy. Clearly, is that a thing?
Yeah, I feel like the Lakers, like they have like a banner, but like the banner is like shaped like it's a jersey. right? Like there's like maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm the class idiot on this one.
No,
but I don't know. I like it. I like it. It was just like an interesting revelation that it was.
Yeah, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole
banner.
as soon as this podcast ends and start looking at all the different arenas and all the different banners. I do think if nothing else, if you're going to do a banner, like make it cooler, if that makes sense. Like I feel like when I go to American Airlines Center and I look up at the Mavs and at the stars that are retired there, like the banners have cool designs and they look unique, or they're the style of one of their more unique jerseys, if that makes sense. That would be cool. Like imagine if Russell Westbrook's was a banner that had the 0 in his name and it was like the sunset stripes from the back of those jerseys that he wore was the design. Like that would be really cool.
That would be cool. And I think that maybe that's kind of what threw me off about Nick, because if you look at his banner, like the sort of style of it has like the different shade of blue than what was that Thunder era of blue. And yeah, you know what? I'm wrong about this. I think I'm totally wrong about this. I just looked at Dirk's jersey retirement. It is just a banner that says 41 Dirk Nowitzki, so I was completely wrong.
But it's a good look, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good look. It's a good look. And Nick Collison's a good look. But yeah, we went down a rabbit hole. I was wrong. Hand up. That's on me. My fault.
You're never wrong. This is everyone needs to soak this in, because you will not get Rylan wrong again for at least a few months.
At least a few minutes, even. But Nick, coming up, we're going to play my favorite game, Fact or Fiction, which you've already spoiled one question, so I'm glad that you were able to do that. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Nick Crain, Forbes, Inside the Thunder, Uncontested Podcast, at Crain NBA on Twitter. You can find him in a multitude of places. You can even find him in Oklahoma City on Monday because of Media Day. So I'm excited about that. And we're going to be there tweeting out all the live quotes from Media Day. And if you see Nick around town, he's an actual celebrity. So run up to him, take pictures with him. You're not going to be inconveniencing Nick Crain, and by any means. Now, Nick, fact or fiction? You've already spoiled one. I was going to ask you, will Chet Holmgren average 2 blocks? We've already done that. So, fact or fiction? As the second best odds to do it at FanDuel, will Chet Holmgren win Rookie of the Year?
I say no. And this is not to say Chet won't be really good. I just think in modern sports, as bad as it is, media voting is influenced by hype. And even though the Thunder should be better than the Spurs, even though Chet, it's going to happen. We saw it last year with Paulo and Jalen. There will be conversations about his stats are better, but what about his advanced stats? Oh, you're just looking at points, rebounds, and there will be debates. But ultimately, I think just the hype surrounding Wemby coming into the league, he's going to have probably more flashy plays where it's like, how is a guy of his size doing that? I just think that unless he gets hurt, like it's really his to lose.
Yeah, I totally think that with Victor, like he's going to win it, because you cannot say he's the best prospect since LeBron and then not vote him for Rookie of the Year. And I think that that's going to be what sways a lot of people. I think that as long as he just gets out of bed, he'll be voted in as Rookie of the Year. But Chet Holmgren will have a huge impact on winning, and maybe he can sway people. But I just think that's going to be Victor in general. Now, the first best odds on FanDuel is Mark to win Coach of the Year. Would you say that Mark's going to win Coach of the Year this year?
For a similar reason, I'm going to say no. I think Mark will be one of the best coaches in the league this year. But just like voters get influenced by hype, voters also get fatigued. It's the reason that Jokic didn't win a third MVP. It's like this.
Okay, calm down.
It's this weird phenomenon where you can't be really good and then just marginally better the next season and win the award. Like you have to blow out of the water what you did the year before. For that reason, I think that Mark winning 16 more games year over year, if he would only win like 2 or 3 more, or the Thunder were in the play-in again, I just don't think that the votes are going to be there. Like you have to like shatter expectations, I feel like, or be a team that's just like number 1 in your conference, and you did it with a roster that maybe wouldn't expected to. Like if he's going to win it, I'm kind of surprised that he's odds-on favorite to win the award. I feel like the Thunder would have to be like home court advantage in the West. then that's a whole another conversation. But you have to shatter expectations relative to the year before, I think, to win that kind of award.
Yeah, I've been on Locked On NBA talking about these two awards and also on this podcast, of course. And with Coach of the Year, it's such a narrative-driven award. Like, Mark would have won it last year going away had the Kings not been the story of the NBA where they break that long playoff drought. If they just simply didn't do that, the Mark's Coach of the Year. So, like you said, we've already kind of given Mark his flowers for what he did last year. And while I think that he is the best coach in Thunder history and everything else, winning Coach of the Year, you've got to, A, get to the actual playoffs. Like, I think that they got to be at least a top 6 seed. And then B, you've got to have no one else be a surprise team. Nobody else be a story. And can you really picture a season in the NBA where everything goes according to plan and there's no surprise team? There's going to be a surprise team, and that surprise team is going to have a coach, and that coach is going to leapfrog Mark, even though Mark should have won the award last year. You could get it to the Kings, whatever. I think that as of right now, he's the leader in the clubhouse, because if it goes on paper, if the season goes the way we think it is on paper, and there is no surprise jump from anybody, and there is no historic season from anybody, then he would be in line to win it. But this stuff happens every year where there's going to be a surprise. There's going to be a different kind of standings than we thought, and that coach will be the beneficiary of it.
Could it be the Rockets?
It could, if the Rockets go to the play-in. They're basically the same story as the Thunder in a way, and it would even more heavily reflect on their head coach because he's brand new. Udoka just got there, and kind of that would be a storyline for him. I think it could. I think that the Rockets' ceiling, of course, is the play-in. I don't think they're going to be a top 6 seed, but their ceiling would be a play-in. We'll see if they get there. We'll see if they get it done. But fact or fiction, Nick Crain, Shea will be a first-team All-NBA player again.
Fact. It's going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take another fantastic season with minimal injuries. You and I talked about this a couple of days ago. Like, the Ja Morant injury is significant because of the games played rules. I think it will be a situation like this year. I feel like it was a runaway. Like, there was no doubt towards the end of the year that he was going to get in. This year, it may be more of a competition. I mean, shoot, Dame is out east now with Giannis. If they're far and away the number 1 seed and he's balling out versus being on the tanking Blazers, maybe he's really, really in the running for it this year on first team All-NBA. But yeah, I think that given what we saw in FIBA, like, this wasn't just a blurb for Shea. Like, he's here. This is him. What we saw last year is the actual Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Fact or fiction, Daniel Bell is the best basketball player in Thunder media.
That is the biggest fiction that I've ever heard. Daniel Bell's a good player. I'll give him that. But there's a reason he's never played me one-on-one. He doesn't want the smoke.
Wow.
I hope he hears this too.
Nick Crain calling him out. He does refuse to play one-on-one. You've wanted your shot at him. Michael Martin's wanted his shot at him. Yep. So he is the self-proclaimed best player, though. Fact or fiction, Daniel Bell could beat Nancy Lieberman in basketball as he proclaims.
Fiction.
Of course it's fiction. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Daniel Bell thinks he could beat Nancy Lieberman and Michael Cage in basketball. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
He is good. He is good. We got to give him some flowers.
He's a good player. He's a good player. He's not Michael Cage good. He's not Nancy Lieberman good. But he's a good player. He's a really good player. Offensively, defensively, he can kind of just he can kind of just going to be there.
Takes plays off, doesn't he?
He does. He takes plays off, but he's such a star. He can get away with it because Daniel Bell is the best. But for you, Nick Crain, let's wrap it up with these final few questions. Ousmane Dieng will take a leap this year. Fact or fiction?
Fact. I think that's clear. He'll take a leap. How much of a role he plays, though, I don't know.
It's a mystery. It can be anything. Fact or fiction? Cason Wallace plays his way into the hearts of Mark Daigneault and the Thunder fan base, and he is just like a really key piece to the rotation this year.
That's a fact, especially the hearts of the fan base. He's just a guy that everyone's going to love. He's the effort guy. He's the motor guy. I've said he's got the mentality of Jimmy Butler, but in a guard's body. I think he'll definitely win over the fan base. He'll definitely win over Mark if he hadn't already. In terms of being in the regular rotation, I think he will in the new year, in 2024. I think with G League call downs and stuff like that early in the season, he may not have as much opportunity, but he will absolutely make his way in.
Yeah, I think he's such a hardworking defensive player who is versatile offensively. That's going to be a player that Mark handpicks almost, that he's going to love. So I think that it's going to help his case to get playing time. And if he gets playing time, as we saw in Summer League, the fan base and what Oklahoma City fans like in players is everything about Cason Wallace. It just screams Cason Wallace. And so, Nick, you're going to leave us with this: your boldest prediction. Don't hold back on me now, okay? Your boldest prediction for the Thunder and the NBA as a whole.
Oh, so two separate ones, or it can be either, is what you're saying?
I'm going to have you do two separate ones. You have to give me an NBA one. You have to give me a Thunder one.
Okay. Thunder one. I think this is bold. Maybe if you look at the odds, it's not that bold. You'll have to maybe tell me. I would at least look at Micic as sixth man of the year. That may sound crazy to people, but when you look at what a sixth man should be doing, he can effectively run the second unit. He's a veteran, although not in the NBA. He's a veteran. He's a guy you can trust in crunch time, incredible vision, can shoot it from deep, can create his own shot. Like, I'm not saying this guy's an all-star, but when it comes to like the veteran backup point guard that continues the momentum of the starters did and doesn't allow things to drop off, whether it's facilitating or scoring for himself, I just think like he's got a real chance to, like, by the end of the season, we look back and say that was a really good Thunder bench, in large part due to Micic. So
Micic is plus 20,000 to win sixth man of the year on FanDuel. On FanDuel, he's behind on his own team, Isaiah Joe.
Wow,
who actually has some decent odds like to win it. Like Isaiah Joe's of course not in that first wave of players, but he's in kind of that second wave at plus 6,500. So not terrible for Isaiah Joe. He's also behind Trey Mann.
What?
For sixth man of the year.
Okay, in FanDuel's defense, the sixth man of the year award does usually go to the guy that just like scores a bunch of points, doesn't actually have to be a real sixth man. So I guess I get that, but like I think Micic is more impactful than both of those guys.
He's also behind Jay Will.
What?
And he's only slightly ahead of Kenny Hustle and Aaron Wiggins.
You know what that tells you, Rylan? That tells you that's good value.
Great value. Great value.
If everyone would put $1 on that right now, you'd have a real chance. Not a real chance. You'd have a chance of what would that net you? $20,000?
Possibly. No, $1 would do. $1 would do.
You have to put 100 to make $20,000.
Yeah, you have to do 100 to make.
I wouldn't recommend putting 100, but put $1 on it.
Yeah, I mean $1.
Remove a couple of zeros. Is that $2,000?
Yeah. No, $1 into $200. Good job, Nick. I mean,
numbers are hard. Numbers are really hard.
Education.
This is why I'm not a gambling man, because I'd be putting money down thinking I'm getting some return that I'm not.
I love the idea of you putting $1 down on Micic way back now, and it's only going to pay out 200, which is still good. I mean, you either lose $1 or you get 200. That's still a good idea.
That would piss me off because I'd be like, why did I put more?
The award conveys, and you leap up and you're like, yeah, I just won $2,000 because you don't understand the zeros, and then your wife is just like, what? You won 200?
Yeah, that would totally happen. This is why I don't gamble. This is it.
It's okay. It's okay. Now your NBA wide bold prediction.
NBA wide bold prediction. Let me go with Steph Curry MVP. I think that the Warriors will be, and everyone's talking about like, if things don't work with CP, you bring in Drew, yada, yada, yada. But I do think the Warriors will be good this year again. I think it's one of the last years they will be good. And I think that Steph has what it takes to just go nuclear and carry this team to a top, 3-4 seed in the West. What's his odds? Is that even hot? Is he top 10 MVP odds?
I have to imagine he is top 10. Let me pull that up for you real quick on the old Steph Curry. Oh, he is not top. Wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's 7th at plus 1300.
Okay, so that's not that hot. That's not that hot. Let me give you another one.
Not that hot.
I'm gonna go with the Orlando Magic make the playoffs. Not via top 6 seed, but I think they make the play-in and they push through.
Okay, I like that. I like the Magic. I'm in on the Magic buzz, the Magic hype, and so that's a good, nice hot take, warm take to have the Jazz make the playoffs, which would be plus 180 to do it, which only puts them ahead of the Hornets, the Pistons, and the Wizards.
They're plus 180.
Yeah, to do it on FanDuel. They're behind the Bulls, Nets, Raptors, Pacers, Hawks, and then of course everyone else.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That's tough. So you can go win a lot of money at FanDuel, Nick. You should go.
Except I have no clue what I would actually win, unless there's a box that I type in.
There's a box that does tell you if you type.
It does the math for me. Then
it does the math.
I'm gonna go create a FanDuel account after this.
Good, and when you do, use code Locked On. But
I got you,
Nick. Let them know where they can find you and everything else.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of places. I'd say the best culmination of it all is on Twitter or X or whatever the kids are calling it these days at Crain NBA, and then also on the Uncontested podcast as well with a couple of great hosts over there. And looking forward to what should be a really exciting season, Rylan.
Yeah, Nick, we mentioned you're traveling, man. A lot of stuff, a lot of places would be a great lifestyle podcast for Nick Crain.
Ooh.
Just about your travels and about whatever you're doing.
Are we traveling
are we traveling to Chicago for the season opener?
Not for the season opener. I wish. I may be going to Atlanta for some OTE stuff unrelated to the Thunder, but kicking off the travels early here.
I like it. You can find him also at Draft Digest for all of your draft needs, as he mentions that he'll be watching OTE. That'll be a lot of fun. Nick, thanks for joining us. And until tomorrow, where we're going to recap Media Day. Be good and be good to one.